Okay, so now supposedly I have a YouTube online, and supposedly I have a Twitch online. Take a look. Okay, Twitch is online. YouTube, not very online. So why isn't YouTube online? YouTube says it's streaming. Yep, view on YouTube. Okay. Hmm. Well, YouTube does not seem to be online. Not sure why not. Okay. Well, YouTube does not seem to be online through Restream's thing. I'm not quite sure why not, but we're going to see what happens, I guess. Latest stream performance channel dashboard, your channel. Yeah, content, analytics. Okay, I'm gonna check on Restream's site. It says that there's two connected. Let's see if it brings me over there. Set bitrate value less than 6,000. Okay. Out of recommended settings values for Twitch. Well, that's fine, I guess. So tools, let's try settings, appearance, video. Output does say 6,000, so I'm not sure what the problem is there. Okay, YouTube says it's there, or there. Ah, there we go. YouTube says it's there. All right, perfect. So now that I do know YouTube is present, Restream is present, which is fine, and Twitch is present, should be. Very good. All right, so I got YouTube, I got Twitch, I got Restream. All those guys are online, which is excellent. All right. Well, that was super fun. I could hear the echo happening. Um, all right, so we got those now, and I'm hoping the chat comes in appropriately. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so Restream.io says it posted messages to both places. Back places. And that seemed to work. All right, so I got YouTube and I got Twitch both getting what I need there. So that works. Excellent. So OBS to both places through Restream for free. Not a bad deal. And that just means analytics currently not available. Duration 5 minutes. That's fine. Messages, chatters, viewers. Okay, cool. Both of those are present then. Works for me. Ah, means I can actually focus on what I want to do and see if it gets me anywhere. So that's a win. All right, and somehow YouTube says I have 2 viewers. I don't think that's the case, but sure. If I do, then fantastic, I guess. But since I don't think I do, and I'm gonna put on, probably not gonna broadcast the music because I don't need that in the background. But we're gonna see. Okay, pull that down. Okay. So we'll minimize that stuff, and we're gonna see if that comes in. Very good. Close that now. We still got Teams, which is good. And OBS is online. Very good. So where were we? We need to make this procedure work when we click the button. And essentially, the local SQLite table needs to know if the record exists on the server, and if it does exist on the server, what separates it. So we would need the ID, and then we would need some sort of like a local ID, is my guess. And if we don't have the server ID, then we would need one, I I guess. I mean, the record ID is always there, but we could, um, well, we could do the add to the server itself, and then do the add to the local, and we don't have to worry about getting an ID if it's already got one. So, all right, yeah, let's compare. So in this case, we're going to insert into there, and then we would get some sort of an ID number back. In this case, it's saying, hey, get me the template ID from here, which is the last inserted row ID. But what happens, can I write the row ID with a value? So let's try that. Okay, and we will let this one be that field, but then we're going to do an insert into that one with a template ID. Okay. Comma. Okay. Template ID. Yep. And then this one's going to insert that where that is the latest added record ID. Now, because that becomes that value, we could do this template ID record dot template record ID like so. Okay, if we have one, because this is then an integer and it can be sent in. By default, it's 0. So if I send 0, it would get back, we would get back something other than 0, I'm assuming. So, all right, let's try that. Um, so in this case, when we do the action to send to the server, essentially, if we can't connect to the server, then this doesn't happen. Um, we would need to identify which records need to be sent up later for being synchronized, but that's fine. So we would basically just have to say, hey, it didn't connect or something like that. So we have add template to SQL Server, which we're going to go and find where the SQLite is referenced, which is this one. Go here, and right before it, we're going to say add template SQL Server, and we're going to do new record, like so. Does not exist in this. Okay, yep, I know. So we're going to use actions dot add template SQL Server new record, and then it's going to say that one. If it's been added locally, then it closes the pop-up window, which is fine. Okay. So let's hope that this works. So we go to our okay. Template test menu, open pop-up form, test, date, just date, continue. Okay. So down here, I guess, we're going to hit continue. Does it get here? I don't think it got there. Oh, wait. Log error. Why? What's the exception? Database. Where's the login? User failed. Login failed for user. Cannot open database. Oh, right. Right. Okay, so stop that. Let's go back out to wherever I just was. SQLite user. All right, which is probably down here where we, no, not that one. It is data source, which is server name, which is default server name here. Yeah. So this is SQL DB connection string. Okay, so we'll go to this one. And essentially, I've only got one reference where we use this, which is here. Do a command, we do a type, and then somewhere down here it's attempting to open that connection. And the connection is set to a new SQL connection from SQL, which is the SQL Server Utilities SQL DB connection string, and it has two overloads, but this one it's just providing no values, so it should get the defaults. All right, so we go to templates, so test menu, new pop-up form, blah, 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 continue. All right, so return string is nothing at the moment. Move the breakdown. Now its data source equals SQL Express, but the database is not correct. Still not correct, actually. So default database name, which is this one, isn't going to exist. So we have to go and find our database, which is this guy. Okay, we have our new test DB. Okay, this is our SQL Server utility. So new test DB, save, continue. All right, so we have this one, we have blah, 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 continue. Return string now should look correct. It has new test DB. Yep, continue. Continue, continue. All right, so we're down here. at the connection that it wants to open. Can it open it? It was able to open a connection. Excellent. So let's check the server. We can test for connections, processes. Let's do a quick refresh on this. Yep, there it is. Good. So that's this guy here, which is going to be some sort of a select statement against new test DB. So this is our connection. Details, it doesn't have anything at the moment, which is fine. So minimize that. Can we connect? This then logs the error. All right, let's try that again. Connect, continue, continue. All right, date time overflow must be between 1753 and 1231. Interesting. Okay, so that didn't happen. It didn't get added to the server. Can it get added locally? Record ID is 0. I don't know that it added it. The date field is 110001, which I think it would have to be defaultable to null. So we would have to do go to detail. Let's do stop that. Date field, definition, public nullable, date time, like so. Save. Okay, it's not required, but we have that one. So we know the connection is good because it gave us an actual message. So we'll do that. Open, execute. Does it execute? It must have, right? Record ID is now 1. Date field is now null. So it did take that, yes. Okay. And in this case, it's still going to give us an error. Why does it give us an error? Unique constraint failed. Template ID must be unique. Ah, yes. So that's because the SQLite server has a unique constraint on it. And it already has a record with a 0 in it, so it can't add a new one. As it should, right? It's primary and it's unique. So we would probably need to do like some sort of auto ID. What if I took unique off? Continue, 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 continue. Unique constraint failed, again on SQLite. Oh, the text field has a unique constraint in it now too. Okay, well that's fun. All right, I'll be right back. How does it work? No, it works. All right. So we'll take music down a little bit for the background there. Now that I'm back, okay. So it basically tells me the text field, which was unique, isn't taking it because of some restriction. But it captured, I think, this exact value. Okay. So if we hit continue, we tell it to go ahead. New record here has a record ID of 3. Okay. But record ID of 3 didn't change. It just couldn't put the ID number in. Okay, so now it has a weird message. Constraint failed. Template ID. Because we already have a template ID of 3. So that essentially tells us, hey, you already have this record locally. I think it has to happen in a certain order. But if my machine is offline and I'm not getting record IDs from the server, I'm creating local records, and I go to then add these records to the server, they would have to get their IDs by going through each one. I do believe that at that point they would have row IDs, not necessarily template IDs, right? So we could leave it as null. Until it gets a value, until we're able to send it to the server. So let's close this and let's, we would have to have a method that downloads all of the data from the server to the local machine. And that's going to be a little bit different. So that's not an error handling. Save. Okay, it's not a new view model. It's probably the actions. Okay, so let's try this. So we have SQL Server methods, yeah, and we have SQLite methods, and this one is going to be a combination of them, and I think we're going to call it download, but it's going to be very similar to select, because essentially it's going to get all of the data. So we'll put that here, and since it's not going to have any filters, it's, well, it might have filters. So we're going to call this select template SQL server. Right. And that would get data from the page fields, which is fine. So, but again, this would have to pull based on a procedure, not a SQL statement. So when we say, hey, can I get data from the server and bring it locally, we'd have to know what kind of data you want. Because some of these aren't going to make any sense to download all of them, because there can be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of records. You don't want to download all of them. You want to download a certain set of that data to work with, whether it's the last month or a certain facility or something. So that still makes sense. We would have to do something very similar to add template model, where essentially we put in parameters and we do something like that. So let's go to SQL Express and we'll close the activity monitor. All right, close this. And in order to make a new procedure, which we're going to go over here, and this is template for add, we want to make one for select. So we're going to say new stored procedure. Template select. All right, just like that. So let me go look at my examples. My other screen. Right. So essentially, our first argument can be how many records do we want back if we know. What order do we want them in? How many are we offsetting, if any? And then each field can have its own filters. Okay. So let's start with the basics, right? How many records are we getting? So we would call it return records integer equals null. Pretty simple. All right. I want to find another method for embedding SQL. Okay. -1. And interesting. And -1 equals -1. That's how they were handling it. That doesn't that doesn't make any sense. So we want to make sure that that works appropriately. So stored procedures to form dynamic SQL, SP execute SQL, extended stored procedure, yeah, SQL max parameter definition. Parameter definition is that, yeah. SQL is this, yeah. And name is not null, and name does not equal blank. SQL equals SQL plus name like that. Yeah, okay. That actually makes some sense. So want to be able to use that parameter definition, product ID, name, product number, color, etc. Yeah, okay. That would make sense. So that would be our declaration section. So we're going to do declare variables. Okay, the first one is going to be declare SQL as n varchar max. Okay, the next one is going to be a parameter definition, which is also n varchar. I'm going to say max because I think we can. And then when we SQL parameter definition and then value assignments is ultimately what it ends up being. Okay, so okay, so it's n varchar, yeah. So then we have set variables and then perform actions. Okay, so that's where we get to do execute sp execute SQL parameter help not supported for extended stored procedures. Okay, yeah, well, that makes sense. Extended SP execute SQL extended stored procedure. Right. Extended stored procedure. Yep. So if we went to our database and we went to our stored procedures, system stored procedures, and in this case it would be um, SP execute, but that's not here. I don't see it. It's interesting. So what's the definition of this? Properties. No. Alright, well, execute SPS SQL should function provided I give it SQL followed by parameter definition followed by parameter assignments. So that's gonna be like whatever my other parameters were, I think. Yeah, we're just gonna end up repeating all of what we're here. So in this case, we have return records equals return records, which is fine. So we have that. All right. Execute SQL. So find all right. So this article execute stored procedures, execute command, extended stored procedures. Yeah. So, oh, we want sp execute SQL, right? Which is essentially what we're doing. But the setting of the variables, which we're going to say add SQL equals concatenate select all from T template. Okay. We're going to use an offset and fetch command. So we have offset by integer equals null, which I do believe gets set to 0. Yep, offset integer is going to be 0. Okay, and then so we have that. Set SQL equals that, and then we would say set SQL equals concatenate SQL followed by offset no. So we would just put out the variableized number then. So we could just do this, offset this, offset by rows, fetch first, return records, rows only. Okay, so then we have return records, and then we would have to do offset by equals offset by. Yes. If I did that right. So inside of tables though, we have 3 records. They're all the same data, but assuming that this worked, template select, start procedures refresh, we can do this, and then we can say execute. All right, we can tell it to return 1 record, offset by 0 records. We can hit OK, and it says incorrect syntax near offset by, must declare the scalar variable return records. Oh, right, parameter definition doesn't have that built in. So parameter definition, okay, so that comes after declarations, and that can come here, I guess. So we would do set parameter definition equals, and in this case we would simply do return records integer I do, okay, yep, we have that, and then we can do comma offset by integer parameter definition. Yeah, so we have return records and we have offset by, which is fine, right? So then we could say alter for the procedure, which we have, and then we can go here, we could execute it. And it still says invalid usage of the option first in the fetch statement because there's no order by. In order to do first, we do need an order by. So in that case, we would say order by template ID, execute, execute. And it gives us one record. So then if we set offset by one record, we would get record number 2. All right, so that's a good sign. This should make it much easier. All right. Now, that means our parameter definition here, which has all of it. We have the return records and we have the offset by. We would also have to have a sort order. So we could then do a sort order. Um, sort order, which we could give it as an integer, because that way it doesn't come in as a weird value, so to speak. Yeah, we could do that. We could do sort order equals 0. And I do believe then we could do declare order by SQL and varchar max. Okay. We have the parameters, but we could also do a where statement. But in this case, it's, well, yeah, actually, we could do and, and we could do all the different wheres just with the parameters, though. Order by SQL. And so if we change this slightly to be select SQL order by SQL, and then we would do a where SQL, we basically break it up into its parts. And then we have parameter definition. So this becomes select SQL, and we're saying select all from this. That's pretty simple. And then we would say set order by SQL equals order by template ID, which is that. Which I think could also include the offset statement, which is there. But the where SQL is going to be the next one. So, so we would then do set where SQL equals interesting. All right. That's fine. All right. Seems goofy, but it's fine. So we have the select SQL, we have the where SQL, we have the order by SQL. So we know how many records we're getting, how many we're skipping, and what the sort order is. But we want something else, like the text field. Okay. So we could then say text field filter. We'll do filter type. Let's just do filter type integer equals null. Okay. And then we would say text field filter value. Filter value 1. Varchar, say 500 equals null. All right, very good. So in that case, we would have to say where template ID is greater than 0, which is always going to be true. But then we could also say if text field filter type is not null, begin, end. Right? And then we could also state if filter type, what are our filter types? I know we had a variety of filter types in SQLite Studio. Filter, yeah, so like for is contains. So we would then say if text field filter type equals 4, that's what we could then say set where SQL equals concatenate where SQL and text field like I just had it on the other screen, right? We want the like symbol. All right, we'll try that. So then we would say text field filter value 1, which is this one. Okay. And we would close that. Yep. All right, so essentially filter number 4, which we'll do here, is filter type 4 equals contains. So that text value is somewhere in what we found. Okay, so does that work? Maybe not quite yet. So we have the where, we have the where, we have the order by, which we have that. So then when we have parameters, which we have offset by, then we could take the other two, which are text field filter type, which is here at a varchar 500. No, sorry, that's filter value is a varchar 500. Filter type is a integer. But filter type actually won't be going in there. It's just, that's a number that was provided from the user. Yeah, so we actually don't need filter type in the parameter definitions because we're not using it. We're only using filter value 1. All right, so in that case, we have that. And we can do then is if we wanted to print the statement, We could do a print SQL to make sure that we have it correct. So we do print SQL, like so. Okay. So in this case, SQL at the end of the set statement. So we have the order by and we have the parameter definition. And that means we could say the full one-shot SQL which I guess we'll want at the end here is going to be set SQL equals concatenate select SQL, okay, followed by where SQL, followed by order by SQL. Okay, and that gives us our one parameter. And then it also gives us the one parameter to print and the one parameter to put into execute. So we'll hit execute on that now. We'll go here and we'll try again. And it did not come out. So it says parameterized query expects parameter filter value 1, which was not supplied. Alright, so we missed it somewhere. Parameters filter value 1. Do I have to provide them as nullable when I'm giving them parameters? Oh, the parameter, right, that's here. Okay. That just means text field filter value 1, which is this one, which would then be this one. Alright, let's execute that and try this. Okay, we got that part. So that means we could do text field filter value equals z. No, we need it as a string z. We're going to execute it again. But I don't think where template ID equals, oh, right. I missed something. Okay, so that's filter value, but it's not doing it because we don't have the filter type defined. So in that case, we have filter type. We're going to say that equals 4. Incorrect syntax, right? So now, all right, now we return 0 records because there are no records that match the criteria. All right. That kind of makes sense. So when we did dynamic SQL in the first part of this, could we do a count SQL statement to get a number back first? And if that number is nothing, it doesn't execute anything else. We would say count SQL, yeah. And then so we could say set equals select count all from T template. Like so. Okay. So, but that just means the same sort of thing. It just doesn't need an order by because it's a count. So, we could do that one first. It would have the same parameter definitions, right? It would just do a different set statement. So if we took this and we did count SQL, where SQL, like that, and then this one would be down here, we would do this, like so. How do we do an output? Output parameter. Okay. So the output would be the last variable declaration in that. So this is parameter definition for the regular one, right? And we can then say declare matching records integer. Our first statement, which is going to be our count SQL statement. This is the only one with the outbound. So unless we declare two parameters, yeah, let's do parameter definition for select and a parameter definition for count, because that would make it much cleaner. So the parameter definition for select gets done first, which is here, like so, and then parameter definition for count can be done right after it, which is just going to be the concatenation of parameters for select followed by the output of that. So then we're going to do matching records integer output. Okay, so that's parameter definition for count, which is here. So this first one, set SQL, is select count. So this is going to be count with where and no order by, and then parameter definition count would go here. But we wouldn't end up needing return records or offset by, but I mean, I guess they're in it, so it's fine. And then text field filter value, blah blah blah. So that's all that stuff. And it just gets stated twice because we're going to execute it twice. But if we wanted to pull that value, it wouldn't be part of the string then. The next one would be select matching records equals matching records, and then we could say select matching records. All right. Yeah, sure. Why not? Execute that. Must declare parameter definition. Right, because we did parameter select now. There we go. Try again. Good. Let's try this. Alright, so this says 0. Let's take let's declare a variable return value. No, we don't. So we have 0, and then we have null. So, yeah, I'm a little confused though. So this first one came in as 0, but then it said null. And then it executes that one. So if we go here, okay, so this is my alias one, which it came back as null. This one says 0. Why would that one say 0 and not the other one? So if we check the messages, which are the prints, this would then say select count from ttemplate where template ID is greater than 0 and text field is like whatever that is. Print is SQL. So we have text field filter value 1, which technically is Z. So, but okay. Yeah, so it's not actually returning. Mm, right. Um, what I find weird though. All right, so the first statement says select count. I guess it doesn't have. All right, it doesn't have an outbound. So in order to have an output, it would have to have a name, right? Output parameter. Product number. Yeah, okay, so that's my problem is here. It wants matching records. Matching records equals, so set matching records equals count star from ttemp table, then select all from ttemplate. Yeah, all right, so execute that. Now execute that. Now it says null. So no injection happened. It ran. It gave me nothing. So if Alright, so now that says 0. So if 0 records, if that essentially happens, we could say matching records we can say is if equals 0. No, if this is greater than 0, then we can do this. But we're not going to do this unless there's records to be retrieved. Then it prevents us from having to do anything. So in that case, we get the message back. And in this case, it says select matching records equals count from template, blah, blah, blah. It didn't actually return anything. So if matching so yeah, we would say select matching records equals, actually we could say set matching records equals is null, then 0. And at that point in time, we can easily ask if matching records is greater than 0. And that can be our first selection is this. So we just do select matching records as matching records. That's the name of it. That's the first data set that comes out. We hit execute and it's 0. Alright, it doesn't do anything else. But if we took this and made it an H, we could hit execute. It still comes back with a 0. Alright, go to template. Let's find a record that does exist, and those do have H's in them. So, I guess the question is we have an H, but it's not returning an H. And we're saying the template ID is greater than 0, and the text field is like something. I don't know why that wouldn't be finding it. Alright, so we printed this statement. We have select count. And if we took that same statement, put that there, select matching records equals count from template, where that equals this, H. Must declare variable matching records. That says 3. Yeah, it should be 3. But it's not doing 3. So that's returning 0. Why is it returning 0? I guess I'm not sure. I mean, it has an output parameter. Hmm. Okay, so that's temp table option, but in reality, we just want a specific record as an output. That's all we're trying to get is select matching records. So it's matching records, but here it doesn't get an alias. Where template ID greater than 0 and text field is like whatever the filter value was. But filter value 1 is of our car, yeah. Filter value 1 should be getting that. Okay, so the first one still is returning 3, saying, yes, I found 3 records. The second one is not returning any, even though that's 4. The filter value here does say H. And so this one says count from ttemplate, where template ID is greater than 0, and text field is like text field filter value 1 plus wildcards. Um, yeah, text field like double quotations and whatever it is, and that. Which makes sense, right? Because then down here we have the parameter definitions for select text filter value 1. Okay, I think that's what it was. I was missing the keyword for output. So then these can be commented out. This can be executed again. Now I can run it, and it says I have 3 matching records. 3 matching records. Good. So I can probably clean that up even more so now. Because somewhere in here it's setting it twice. So if we comment that out, we do this, do that. First one is just 3. All right. Well, why is it 3? I think that's this part here. Yeah, that seems right. In this one, it selects a data set. Okay. I think we would have to have a statement in here. Let's take this out. Actually, this could be for testing. Can I do a region in SQL Server? Hmm, interesting. Right, that makes sense. We should be able to take this. If we did a begin there and a end there, we should be able to just minimize. No. Again, I don't know. Testing region. Okay, that actually worked. Again, testing region, which is fine. So if we execute it just like this, that didn't. Again, adding a begin and end with a comment on the begin creates regions, which will look like this. Make sure you have outline statement enabled under text editor. Okay, so tools, settings, text editor, transact SQL, general. Line numbers turned on, yeah. Yeah, we have IntelliSense built in, which is fine. Okay, so let's do that with a commented line, dot dot, testing. Again, end. Okay, so it seems to recognize the begin end statement. Kind of. Alright, if we tried that. Really, begin end works, you just have to add a commented section. Text indentation in the query editor. No. I don't see that working. But we have to add a comment. Okay, so if Oh, that actually works. That's not horrible at all. But if we put that there and then did it, does that still run? No, it doesn't. What about now? Still doesn't. Because it doesn't recognize the declare statement afterwards. All right, well, that's all fine. All we need to do then is, because this is, it's all commented out anyway, so I think what we can do is we can probably just put in a commented line at the beginning saying for testing, like so. Boom. All right, that allows me to do fine stuff there. I think if we took this, we can put this down here, and then this would, yeah, that's fine. Yep. All right, so we have the testing part done, which is good. That's pretty easy. We have no count, we have declare variables, we have all the declare, we have the set variables. Type 4 is contains, right. So why is type 4 contains? Because that's the order I listed them out. And if we said start or begins with is number 17, essentially. So we would do filter type 17 is begins with, and then we would say if filter type is 17, then we would simply do like whatever that is followed by that because it's the end of it. So we could hit execute. All right. And then back here, we know that this one begins with T. So we could say 17 execute. It says we have 3 matching records, but it didn't pull any matching records. So I guess the question is, why didn't it pull any matching records? If matching records is greater than 0, which this still came back with 3. Okay, so that gave me the first record that matched. But the first statement is giving me a 3. Why is it giving me a 3? It's saying count with a where. SQL. Filter type is not null, right? So if I brought back my testing ones, and this one became number 17, and then we turn these off, turn these back on, technically, we could go to the bottom of this, run it. But it didn't give me any records. Oh, wait. Right, so this has a... Okay. What? Incorrect syntax. Unclosed quotation mark. Um, okay. So it's putting a single quote in there. That doesn't make any sense there. Yeah, those are single quotes. And that should be the only part with a single quote. It should be like this plus that. So if we exit, fine. All right. Try this again. So text field like text field filter value 1 equals nothing. And that's an H. So we know it doesn't start with an H, but it does start with a T. So if we switch this to a T and then ran it, we get record number 2, which started with a T because we declared we only wanted one record. So if we want 2 records now, we now have 2 records, record number 2 and record number 3, because we're skipping record number 1. Okay, so that's a good thing. So I think this is pretty strong, because this is our filter types, these are our filter values, this is that sort of stuff. That means we should be able to minimize that, execute this, go into here and execute it and get a record. And if we were to tweak the number of records we wanted, such as this, we would then get 2 records back. All right, very good. Okay, so the first record set it gives us here is just the count. But I guess that the dumb question is, how do we name it as part of an output? Because if we're going to look for it, we would, well, I mean, it could just be record number 0 inside of here. Because when we say, hey, I'm not adding it, no, selecting it. So selection for SQL Server is going to be very similar to the parameters in this regard when we try and select stuff. So let's start with that. This is the select template SQL Server command. And in that case, we have our string builder, and then we would need our our connections, our commands, our data readers, our procedure. Right, so these, like so. All right, so we got the SQL connection, the SQL command, the SQL data reader, and the procedure name, which is fine. So then we have our procedure name in our set, okay, which will be template select. All right, and then we have whether it's been successful or not. That's for adding, not for selecting. And then our connection, which would be this one here. Put that down, do that, excellent. All right, now inside of perform, we're going to do the command type, and the procedure parameters. All right, and we're also going to take the perform actions header, like so. Now, if we wanted to do something similar, to that, we would have a bunch of inputs, but this is adding. We have selecting, which is here. So 1, 2, 3, 4 integers, and then a varchar. So we would then have to take something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4 integers, and a varchar. Excellent. So we do it all in one procedure. Yep, means that goes away. Alright, that's going to be end region, procedure, parameters. Alright, what do we have? First variable is return records, which is here, return records. So for selecting, we have list page fields, right? Which essentially is what we would say list page records per page. Yeah. And the next record is going to be the offset by. Offset by. Offset by. Yeah. Followed by the sort order. Order by option dot order by option number. Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty easy. And then we have text field filter type. But since select SQL Server, select template servers should come with filters, right? So templates, filters, filter types, integer ID filter types, date field filter types, right? Those are then static collections, so they're all the same, but I don't know that we need them to be static collections. Maybe we do, not sure. But we would need to be able to send in the filters to identify, like, what did they pick? I think. Like all of the things, I don't need to spell them all out. I just need to know what they picked. So when we do this with SQLite, we don't have that, right? Let's do find filter. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So we would have to say list, no, template, filters. Template, filters. That's that class then, right? That's not, no. All right, so when we're using our templates, which are these, we could then take actions, which means we can then reference the class called filters. We'll call it filters, but template underscore filters, which, yeah, I don't understand why that's not found. Public creation. Oh, seriously? I screwed up. Okay, fine. Template, current, select, current document. Save. Alright, so now we have filters, which is this one. Alright, and then the return offset sort order. Then we had this, which is then filters dot selected. That's integer field filter type, but we would need text field filter type. So these are types, which is the collection. This is the selection. This is the types. So we would have to do something similar. So we put that in like this, and we say search for anything integer field, and we replace it with text field, and we do it case sensitive. We do that, okay? And then we go back and we say integer field, text field, selection, do that. Okay. And at this point, we now have the text field filter types, and we have the selected text field filter type. But that gives us the filter type. That doesn't give us the value, filter value, which I think is what we would need another one for. So then we would do private static string text field. We could filter value text field. Public filter value text field. Yep. Okay. So we have filter value for text field, which is here. May consider it making it nullable. Yes, we are going to consider making it nullable, just like so. Okay. Which we have now. Thank you. interesting enough. Alright, so we got filter value text field. Let's see. Alright, so we have text value filter type and then text field filter value 1. Okay, so that's this one, text field filter value 1, which would then be equivalent to filters dot filter value text field, right? And then this one, which is text field filter type, which is this guy, selected, no, dot selected text field filter type dot filter type ID. Okay, so that's an integer and that's a string essentially. And it should be able to take in those values. I hope. Okay, so this one is when we add it based on the parameter. We don't have any output parameters, so then we simply open it, execute the query, but it's not a command query this time. It's actually a reader query. And then the first one, when we execute the reader, is we're going to say while this, so this page field matching records, convert count of matching records. But I think, I don't know that we have a value of it. We would just have to do RDR0, just the first field that comes up, because we don't have a name. for it. So we'll put a break here. And then what we'll do is we're going to say if matching records is greater than 0, no, is equal to 0, return. Object of a type convertible to Boolean is required. Right, so this would be an integer if the integer is equal to 0. Then return. But it would or we could say if it's greater than 0, then we would continue. Yeah, so we would have to say greater than 0. Next results. Like so. Okay, so essentially we said, yep, we found it. So go to the next result. And in this case, we're going to clear them from memory. And then we're going to say, go and get these items. Kind of the same way that we did. Yeah, date, integer, decimal, and text. Yeah. Possible null reference assignment. Well, this is not a nullable field. So, that's all fine. So if we took the text field, put that there, that should kind of prevent it now. So we're saying if text field is null, record text field equals whatever to text field. So that adds it, and then it would close it, which should make sense. Okay, and then if it's not closed, then close it, which is fine. And that's our catch statement. And then we return action completed, but were we returning action completed on the other selection statement? Let's see, so select tables equal light. Yeah, I returned a Boolean. Right. Basically it says, hey, yes, was this successful? If it is, I'm gonna go get the collection. Alright, so that makes sense. So we can then say copy this, go down here, we get our connection. So as long as we can read it, we should be good then. So this is the execute reader. We have that, and then we have this. Action completed is true. Yeah, so that all makes sense. Okay. All right. So I guess the simple thing would be saying, hey, I want to download a certain amount of these records, these template records. Maybe I want to download 100 of them, write down 1,000 of them, or something. I want to download a bunch of records. I want to take them from the SQL Server, and I want to put them in SQLite. And then if I can't add a new record to SQL Server, that record should exist in SQLite. somehow. Okay. Well, the good thing is we can add records to SQL Server. We can select records from SQL Server, right? We probably want to be able to delete records from SQL Server, or at least mark them as deleted, because that's what we're doing here, and that would be calling a different stored procedure. Once we have these set up, then it should work really, really well. And then it would be like getting all of the fields from one, which would essentially be the same as selecting, except it'd be one record. Okay. And then updating is a little different too. But so that's our SQL Server via stored procedure, because that will make much more sense. So this is template select. Yeah. So we have that, and we can say, hey, give me the records that have a T in them. Or if we said we didn't have return records, or we didn't have an offset by, let's remove both of those and try again. A top or fetch clause contains an invalid value. Really? All right. So offset is 0. Return records is 0, right? Yeah. So offset by 0 rows, fetch first. Yeah. All right. So that's, and then that only makes sense if it's less. So then we would say set, right. So we could say if return records is greater than 0, begin, end, set order by SQL equals concatenate order by SQL guys, that's rows fetch first, so many rows only. So that's yeah, if it's greater than 0, because if it is 0, it's going to return all, essentially. So we'll hit execute, incorrect syntax, Y, there. Try now, execute, excellent. Try that. So we say 3 matches, it returned all 3 matches because that's what we got. And if we just say, give me all the records, it gives me all the records. So if we did something like this, we went to tasks, I think we could do it here. Okay. All right, yeah. So essentially, we would add a record to both of them, right? So if we open up our WPF interface creator, which is here, button here, that's our field. Okay, we have a date, which is like last week, an integer, which is that, and a decimal, which is that. We'll hit continue. So we're pretty confident this is going to work. right? And didn't work. Unique constraint failed. Really? Right. Okay. No, I do know why that happened. Because the SQLite database already has so many records in it. And we just haven't passed that number yet on the SQL server, and that already has that template ID. So if we looked at our SQL server, we said select records, we now have 4. Since we have 4 locally and we have 4 on the server, we could hit continue, and we should now have a record 5. And it wants to close the pop-up, and it does so with no error. And if we refresh our local table, we have 5, we have the integer, we have the decimal. Our date did not save, so that's a different problem entirely. But that's a different bug now. All right. Did it save on the server side of things? So we have nothing in the date field. All right. Why don't we have anything in the date field? Because it should have grabbed the date field there. And if we were looking at the new form, which is this one, all right, date picker doesn't have a binding to it, so we would have to say but date selected, date selected. Okay, so select the date. We would then say binding new record dot date field. Pretty simple. Try that now. Okay, new form, blah, blah, blah. We have a date picker. We pick a date. We do an integer. We do a decimal. Okay, we hit continue. And we check our server. We do have a date of 8/14. That's what we wanted to verify. And then we check our other server. We have a date of 8/14. Perfect. So that means we are now simultaneously adding the record to the server, getting the ID, and then adding it locally. So next trick is going to be, how do I add a record to the local when the server didn't work? When the server didn't add. Okay. So essentially we're saying that the connection didn't work. We couldn't talk to the server or something. Something happened. So this basically said, hey, I couldn't save the server. I still want to save locally. And I still want to do that. But I don't have an ID number anymore. So if I don't have an ID number, can I save the value without one? And then come back to it later. Do I create a temporary local ID with that? Because I'm trying to think, if I have multiple parent records I need to do, and then I have child records related to those parent records, how do I keep the child records configured to the correct parent record? They would need some sort of ID or temporary ID in order for that to work. So I guess when we don't have a connection to the server and we start to accumulate data locally, we could just accumulate multiple records. We want to be able to collect these multiple records and the children records with those records affiliated accordingly. And then we want to be able to send all of those to the server when we can get connected to re-download them, essentially. And we want to be able to keep those affiliated. So I think we would have to do like a local ID and a server ID. And in the traditional download things, they would be the same. But if they're not, and I don't have a server ID, how would I keep them affiliated? Well, we would have to cycle through them, right? So let's say we have new record number 10. 1 through 9 are on the server. We create record number 10. That's local. It can't be communicated to the server for some reason. We also want to create record number 11, which can't be sent to the server. I create 3 issues on record 10 and 3 issues on record 11. But when I want to send them to the server, record 10 and record 11 already exist. So I would have to get the server ID for the parent record, update the parent record, and update any children with that ID as well. If it would have to be custom, I don't want it to be custom. Be like an upload event type deal for the features that would work without the server connection, which in theory would be a lot of them, because we'll just download local data sets to the local SQL tables. And for the most part, they won't matter. But we would have to say, hey, this record not on the server, that record not on the server. We'll have to figure that part out.